I will now give you a brief overview before we start with the next speakers to make you kind of to prepare you for the upcoming talk and tell you what will be next. And before I do that, I can already let you know that we do encourage you to also go into the portal of the event and have a look at our partners and get in touch with our partners. As well as to engage in networking, which we know is not the same as if this was a physical event, but we do even more than encourage you to enter the live chat within the stage 2, but also what you could do is to text with other people that are in this event with you right now. And I think we're at the point where our upcoming speakers are also ready. We will now soon see them on the screen. Who will be talking, who will give a talk which is called Protecting Data While Maintaining Analyzability and Its Business Value. Is this fact or fiction? And in order to talk about that, I am introducing Mr. Alexander Ramm, who is a Senior Account Executive for DACH and Italy at Protegrity. He has more than 15 years of experience in multinational and omni-channel financial industry roles, and has had a focus on payment products and services, both on the enterprise and SMB sales side, as well as business and product development and product management. Also with him is Dr. Manuela Cianfrone, who is a senior security engineer at Protegrity as well. She has almost 20 years of experience in the IT context for multinationals and startups, is a web programmer, software analyst, and systems administrator, and has turned her passions for digital forensics and cybersecurity into her current role as a senior security engineer at Protegrity. I'm now glad to hand over the stage to both of you. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you for us having the opportunity to present our insights of data security that we offer. I'd also like to thank the whole Bitkom team for the excellent preparation support given. So a shout out to them. Thank you for the introduction. That makes it shorter for me. Maybe I'd just like to add that Manuela and I are part of the MIA team of Protegrity here for the DACH region in Italy specific. We're both out of the North German area, based one in Hamburg and in Bremen, so that's good for the beer and also good for the other stuff. But it's like looking at our company, which is more important, is offering a 15-year-old tradition, basically being still as a startup nature. We're based out of Utah, USA, with offices in London and Singapore, assuring a global reach into 7 continents. So our passion is actually securing the most valuable assets in the world, no matter what IT environment or at what stage the data is used or stored. We offer a wide variety of security methods to meet today's regulatory requirements. We know what's going on in the market. That's why we're sharing this information now with you. And we'd like to show you some insights about how you could provide all these necessities to gain access and use your data most wisely. So I'd like to hand over to Manuela. She's talking about a little bit more of the technical part, as I'm more in charge of the commercial relationship. And well, off we go. Manuela.
Yeah, sure. I will start. I will correct only what was said before. I have 10 years of experience, so 1 year is not enough, maybe to, I would say maybe an overall overview of the security aspect of a company. But generally speaking, we want to start the conversation talking about the typical data security approach that we have experienced with our customers as well. Usually we saw the old-fashioned castle protection. As you can see in this slide, it's the kind of onion structure, as I usually say, in which we notice that perimeter defenses have proven, because of the media, to be inadequate, because all the layers are used, as in the, I would say, all this time, as walls around the data. But the thing that needs to be protected, considered as asset sensitive for the organization, is the sensitive asset itself. So today we're going to see how to implement security, eventually a security solution, so protection methods with better design in order to have a value out of the protection method applied, and not considering that much the fact that there is an implementation needed. Obviously, we need to consider the balance between the usability of data and the protection of data, and so the reputation of the organization itself. So let's deep dive about what we know is currently the main vulnerabilities that we see in the different organizations, so different realities. So we saw the data breaches, right? So based on Verizon 2020, so one of the reports that we wanted to start a conversation with, we noticed and we know already for our experience that behind breaches, there are outsiders for 70% of the pie that you can see here, and insider for the 30%. So the top compromise attributes that are target of these data breaches are the one that you can see here. I would say that overall, all these top compromise attributes are potential attributes that need protection for an organization. Here you see a kind of spectrum of all the possible sensitive information of the organization. They can be more, because generally speaking, we are not only talking about sensitive data of individuals, but we also talk about confidential data of the organization, security, sensitive data of the organization like commercial information, or something that is more secret to an organization like a project. So here you see, I would say, most of the things that are target for attackers and the things that usually an organization need to secure. It could be personal details, account details, payment details, health records, commercial information, and so on. For all of them, different regulations are asking us and the organization to apply zero trust principle to this sensitive information. So you need to assume that you have been already breached to try to minimize the impact of exposing the data. So use least privilege access. Be sure that you reduce the threat surface of the organization. And at the end of the day, there is a need to build a control framework in order to try to find the best approach and the best way to deliver only data in the clear to the piece of population that needs for their job to use that specific data. And it's not that easy, right? So at the end of the day, the main need that we know from the organization perspective is that they need a user-centric approach. So create a policy at the organizational level that allow for defining very flexible or role-based access control that allow to authorize user to see what they expect to see for their business role. So you have the data of the organization and you have the different role that needs to access, no access at all, partially access that information. So we have a DBA that generally speaking is the one to maintain the system that doesn't need to see that specific data store on the different environment in the clear. A user like a customer service that needs to partially see some information to validate their user. A data scientist or marketing guy that needs to work and do reports on authorized information, such as only a portion of what an organization stores, so location or country code, for example. And then we have, I would say, the last part that is the most important one. So the business user really authorized to see the information in the clear. In this case, I have here an auditor, but it could be, I would say, a financial user or an HR user that they can have a specific target to see specific information sensitive to the organization in clear for providing the, I would say, their job function. But how we can satisfy these needs if data has to be protected at rest in order to be secure? Because if everything is protected, we cannot really deliver the information to the other part of the population that maybe needs still to work with some pieces of that data. Obviously, Protegrity, but also other vendors provide solutions that allow a customer to protect data with different protection methods. Here, I try to condense all the ones that are in the market, also Protegrity supports, that are applied on data in the clear. So the first screen would be more related to which are the, generally speaking, identifier, the attributes that usually are considered sensitive, and are usually stored in the clear in the organization, in the production environment that or test. So in this case, we have first name, last name, email addresses, gender, social security number, date of birth, and spending. Spending, in my case, it will not be treated as something to be protected because we are going to protect the identifier. So that one, I'll say, lose a little bit of risk if the others are protected. So if we apply encryption, or say the old style of AES encryption to this data, what we have as output is, I would say, something that it's not really sortable filterable, or anyway not analyzable at all. So as you can see, first name, it's not a character set of alphabetic domain anymore, last name as well. Email address, it's not really similar to an email address anymore. Social security number, so everything in red here is what we have targeted as something to be encrypted. Social security number, it's not a number anymore. Date of birth, it's not a date anymore. And this can cause some, I would say, issues in terms of fine-tune the different applications or tables or databases or container of data, because they need to be adjusted to host this kind of new protection method. Also, encryption is reversible, so there is a way to get to the original data, but in this case, yeah, something that is stored already in a table like that cannot be really workable or solvable, also from not authorized user that needs to partially see this information. What about tokenization? Also, tokenization and format preserving encryption are similar in the outputs, but behind the scene there is a process that is different from the two. But talking about tokenization, you can keep the format, you can make the data similar to the original data, so you can replace the original data with something that has the same structure, so you don't need to redesign your system to host the information. But how can still an organization analyze something from data protected? So can we add a value out of protected data applied on sensitive information? And also, there is another method called dynamic data masking that is, I would say, a layer that is only a visualization layer, cosmetic layer that we apply, generally speaking, on data, not protecting data requests, but only when this data is retrieved from maybe partially authorized user, or it's stored in a dev and test environment for the purpose of not exposing the production data. So in this case, I'm applying data masking, data masking on last name, email address, social security number, date of birth. So the advantage for sure is that you are not exposing sensitive data, but you still need to fine-tune the information in a way that the application can handle them. So the social security number is not a number anymore. Date of birth, it's not a date anymore, so you cannot really manipulate that information, but still this data is protected somehow, but not always at rest. So it's not really giving this high security to the organization. So we took a look, I would say, to the different approach of methodology to apply security, but how we can find the best one to use in order to answer to the initial question that we had. So we would like to protect our data. We would like to introduce maybe a layer of protection, but we would like still to be able to not impact that much the performances. And we would like to take advantage of that to still make something usable or make analysis on that specific value, even if protected from the population that needs to see that specific data exposed. So the suggestion here is to analyze one by one the sensitive data for the organization once it's classified. So here I'm taking in consideration a credit card number that has a logic behind the scene. So we identify that initially speaking, organization leave the information in the clear, and then they apply protection on that. So we identify first, which is the number of population of user that needs to access entirely to that information in the clear. So in this case, the full credit card number is accessed to, I would say, a really, really small amount of people of the organization, usually from 3 to 4% of the organization. And then we have several, maybe a group of people that need only to see partially that information. So only maybe the first 6 digits, if it's regarding marketing, that needs to make analysis on that specific data because of the vendor, or the last 4 digits because of customer service that needs to validate a user. For all the others, we need to design the token. So in this case, we are using tokenization in a way that we still have a value when this data is stored in a database or anyway container containing data. This is needed in order to improve the security posture of the organization and try to reduce the exposure on risk of the information to the population that has access directly to the database, directly to the system itself. So what we can do to give to protected data a real business value. So as I mentioned, we analyze the type of data first. We analyze the logic containing that data, if there is any. And if it's really necessary to expose the entire data in plain text to a large part of the population. So I would say these are also key to classify that information as, I would say, secret, classified as sensitive, or so on and so forth. So here we have a set of, obviously, one row of our set that we presented before, that contains name, date of birth, city, phone number, credit card number, customer type, and spending. We, in this case, apply tokenization, but we apply tokenization at rest in a way that it's still possible to analyze, sort, filter, search, or I would say make manipulation of data, having something that is exposed, not, I would say, losing the value of the data itself, but still make it, I would say, usable. So in this case, the name is protected, because even if you are going to add join, or you are going to keep, you will have to keep the preferential integrity, so the name will be protected as well in the same way, no matter where it is stored. Date of birth will have the year of birth exposed in order to make manipulation of data or analysis on maybe the age of a specific certain set of people. The city will be protected because in this case, in our case, we wanted to anyway consider these as part of the things that we have sensitive for the organization. Usually it's not a sensitive information, but this is just to see the overall picture. The phone number can have a specific area code, prefix that you would like to expose to make analysis, for example, for marketing, to understand the location of the people you are sending a specific advertising. Credit card number can have the first 6 digits exposed and the last 4 digits exposed and protect the rest of the information. So at the end, you're going to have a credit card number that is not a real one existing anymore, but still analyzable. And the customer type in this case and the spending are something that we targeted as something to protect within the system itself at rest. So having whatever is the solution that allows you to have a policy that reverse the process of unprotecting the data for the specific role of the business, now it's easier also bypassing any solution to get to the information in an easier way, not impacting the performance, already having the data semi-protected when it's stored. For sure, having something that allows you to reverse will simplify the process in a sense that you are going then to deliver based on the policy the result that is like defined for a specific set or group of people, as we mentioned before. So in the case of a database admin or a default user not having any right and access to that specific data, what we are going to deliver in our example is everything as it's stored in a database, so something that has no real value for the person that is going to, as an insider, for example, take the data with a dump of the database, but maybe as a value for the others that needs to work on this specific part of the data exposed. Data scientists view, based on the policy, will have maybe a layer of protection that are less restricted. So this will allow the data scientists to see in the clear what is expected to see. So in this case, the city, to make analysis on the geolocalization of that specific user, customer type to make more specific analysis on that specific customer, and the spending to make averages, so work maybe anonymizing data and specific attributes, while all the others have something that you can, through the say policy or through a protection solution, add as a layer for that specific user when this user is not really assigned to a real business user that needs to see this information in the clear. So in this case, the phone number, it's not only exposing part of the data, but it's also adding a mask for this user because this user cannot see also the data protected. Or the credit card number, instead of seeing for the specific role of data scientist, the first 6 digits and the last 4, it can see only data masked with a specific mask that can comply with the format of the credit card number, so it's still numeric. I would say we have the best case ever, so with a user that has the right to see the data in the clear. In this case, it's our financial controller view, in which we have, I would say, the super user, so the one having most privilege that can see everything in the clear, and this will be the result. So I would say the process is reversed to unprotect the data only for this specific user. I would say, to finalize it, to answer to the very provocative question that we made in the very beginning. So it's possible to protect data while maintaining analytics and usability and the value of the data itself. So it's not a fact and a fiction. It's possible for organization to choose the balance between security and usability that fits their need, making the adoption of protection easier. Obviously, here I reported, I would say, a graph that allows you to see that there are in the market different layers of security, like access control, monitoring, or dynamic data masking that are not really intrusive, in the sense that they are not really working on the data itself. And they seem to be nice to have because they give you some of the components of the security model that we saw before in the very beginning. They keep the usability, not impacting, I would say, not that much the performance. But tokenization and encryption, I would say the package of different methods of protection can guarantee high security and can be designed to, I would say, not have, I would say, a huge impact on the organization if obviously the means are used in the proper way. So yeah.
Thank you, Manuela. I hope we had some interesting insights. And back to you, David, maybe for a round of FNQs, frequently asked questions and so forth. David?
Yes,
you
thank you.
Okay.
I hope I can. I cannot see you yet. That's why I was. That's why I was idle for a second. But I think that I can. I can see you, but I cannot see myself yet. But I think there we are, all on the panel. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so thank you both of you for your intervention, for giving us insights into how the solution that you are. That you were presenting actually how it works and what is behind it. I think that was already super helpful. A few questions we would indeed like to ask you would, for example, be, because we talk a lot about regulation here, and we talk a lot about privacy laws and these kind of the environment that encompasses your software as well. So maybe can you say something about the interaction between what you are doing and kind of the regulatory or the legal context? How do you take that into account when you are designing and applying this system?
Yeah, for our solution, we didn't want to talk about the solution itself. We wanted to be general on helping the, I would say, organization, or generally speaking, the entrepreneur to have in mind a better design, no matter which is the solution. But the idea is that we design our solution to be flexible and to not be attached to a specific regulation, because obviously we work worldwide, so we don't want to have a national limitation or international limitation or European limitation. So for us, the treating a data, it's like treating a label. So no matter which is the kind of data you would like to protect, it can be labeled with something and then apply protection on defining which is the best protection method. So I would say that what depends more regarding the legal point of view is more the design of the solution itself. So the solution can provide protection. It's a layer that you could put on top of the different organization, but it's important how you design the solution for answering to the legal requirements. So I would say that we provide that kind of solution in a flexible way, giving the organization the flexibility to design together with us the best approach for PCI regulation, GDPR regulation, dev and test management, test data management. And so from this point of view, we don't have only a software that takes care of that, but it's an entire piece of solution that can work on the privacy level with anonymization, with a different protection method to satisfy maybe the GDPR requirement, but also the design level to satisfy the PCI needs.
I see, I understand. Thank you so much for this. Maybe also a question that looks a bit more into the future of this field, because I think we think it's a very interesting and broad and complex area. So where do you see the future of data protection going? Where do you kind of see this field in a few years? Because there's of course changes in terms of technology, there's changes in terms of the kind of legal framework. Maybe you can share a bit of your thinking where we are now and where we can go.
Well, if you look at the history of where it all started decades ago, where everybody was just worried about a technical barrier to provide security, right? And the evolvement of how it goes on and continued into the world of application. The app word suddenly, the cloud appeared. So we're constantly moving more into a flexible area where the flexibility is very important to adapt. So the art of adoption and that you can provide is that what we see. So Protegrity, or we're in general, we're looking for a data security which goes really the journey that everybody else is heading for. So technology, basically, your car communicates with the outside environment. It reads all kinds of signs. It sees people. This is the next step once again, right? People have to be sure that their face is not recognized, that the identification of the area is not provided. So also we have to meet our technology on these ways of transporting or accompanying the data and keeping it safe there where it has to be safe. So if it's a local regulation popping up in the future, if it's an international regulation popping up in the future, if it's on-prem or wherever it goes, right? That's where we have to belong with the data security, and that's where we see our journey too. So we adopt basically to the what innovation goes. Simple as that, but it's also very generic what I'm saying, of course.
Thank you so much for this. Thank you for sharing this. Maybe as a final question, what I'm looking at the watch, or maybe there's space for two questions. I wonder where would you see the most? What are the most common problems that you would observe in your kind of daily thinking when it comes to protecting data, when it comes to protecting security? Like, so what are the most common things that you see?
I'd say the hesitation of moving to the cloud is a big problem because of the uncertainty of what's going to happen with my data out there. Who's going to look at them at the end? You know, we have these Schrems, we have Cloud Act, we have all these headlines coming up. That's one problem. We also have of course, the ransomware problem, which is constantly growing. So that's another thing we're confronted with, that people basically, these technical layers are not good anymore. They're just not enough. You have to protect it there, and that's why we have the data-centric approach to protect the data where it lies at the core, so that no matter if you penetrate this perimeter, nothing will happen with the data. So we're giving the power to those who are allowed to use the data and making it worthless for those who are unauthorized.
I understand. Thank you also for this. And then maybe we have time for a last question. Maybe that's good too. So that's something we also see at Bitkom, right? That we have topics which are very horizontal, so they will cover different industries in a similar fashion, and then there are others where things are very kind of focused on a specific vertical, and some things maybe need to be addressed in a vertical manner, and some maybe need to be addressed in a horizontal manner. So I wonder, is that something that you also see in your thinking, that there are different kind of, say, maybe mindsets, maybe requirements when it comes to different industries, and how do you feel about that? Does that also apply in your field?
Manuela, would you like
to? Generally speaking, I think that also Alex can help in this direction, in the sense that he came, for example, for a banking sector, and he arrived in Protegrity working with different sectors. So the main thing that change is the maybe regulatory compliance that they have, but at the end of the day, as I mentioned briefly in our conversation initially, is that we are treating data as new label in a way that you identify first where this is located, where it's like how you would like to approach to that information. Like if it's a picture, we will treat it as a specific way, because there is no way to get to that information in a specific tokenization method, because it's an unstructured data. But I would say no matter which is the industry and the legal requirement, at the end of the day, the security approach, it's a moving target. It's not something that satisfies a specific project. We usually start with customers because they have a specific project, a specific requirement for a specific, I would say, small need. But at the end of the day, they increase the scope every time because they see the benefit of having also the protection as one of the means for the organization to innovate. So I would say that there is no really, each and every sector is linked when it comes to security, because no matter if it's, and now say, a structure around the data or the data itself, everything needs to prevent and I would say keep the reputation of the organization as a first requirement. So no matter which is the sector, we need to prevent that anyway. And also we need to design something that allows the customers to keep the trust. So this is I would say, the main line that embrace all the industry and factors. So this is why even if you have different solutions in the market, I would say all of them applies on the, I would say, the security area, no matter which is the sector.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this.